Millions of Americans tune in each evening to watch Bret Baier deliver the day's top stories from behind the Fox News anchor desk. Unaware of the personal turmoil he has carried for nearly 2 decades, behind the calm professionalism is a father who welcomed a newborn son with a walnut-sized, heart-pumping blood in the wrong direction. A child who would endure 5 open-heart surgeries before reaching his teenage years. Baier also survived a car crash in Montana that left his family trapped upside down in a frozen ditch. Mourned the sudden death of the father who shaped the man he became, and weathered leaked text messages that threatened the firm-minded reputation he had spent years building. It is the story of someone who spent his career delivering hard truths to the country while confronting truths in his own life that no journalism training could prepare him for. In 2007, Baier's life seemed poised for triumph. Fox News had named him the network's White House correspondent, a coveted role covering the Bush administration, and his career was on a steep upward climb. But just as he reached the professional milestone he had worked toward for years, his personal world was appended in a hospital delivery room that year. His wife Amy gave birth to their first child, a son they named Paul. The delivery appeared completely normal. No complications, no warning signs. But moments after birth, a nurse noticed the baby looked unusually pale. What followed was every parent's nightmare unfolding in real time. Tests revealed that Paul had 5 congenital heart defects. His tiny heart, no larger than a walnut, was circulating blood incorrectly throughout his body. The defects were so severe that doctors told the new parents their son would need open-heart surgery within days. And there was a real chance he might not survive long enough to go home. Bret and Amy, both raised Catholic, leaned heavily on their faith, though nothing could truly prepare them for watching their newborn disappear behind the doors of an operating room. Bret later described believing that a loving God had a larger plan for their son and their family. Even as fear and hope existed side by side, Paul survived the first surgery, but it was only the beginning. Over the years that followed, he would undergo 4 more open-heart operations and 10 angioplasties, procedures meant to keep his fragile cardiovascular system functioning. Each surgery carried serious risks, and each recovery brought new challenges. The Baier family learned again and again how to cope with the uncertainty, the hospital stays, and the constant fear woven into their son's medical journey. They created a family mantra they repeated during their darkest moments. We're one day closer to getting Paul home. It became their anchor, a small but powerful measure of progress. Even when the road ahead felt impossibly long and home seemed far away, those words reminded them that the light at the end of the tunnel was still there. However distant, 7 years into their journey with Paul's heart condition. In 2014, Bret decided to share their story publicly. He published a memoir titled Special Heart, A Journey of Faith, Hope, Courage, and Love. In it, he laid out every terrifying moment of Paul's medical ordeal, giving readers an unfiltered view of what families dealing with congenital heart disease must confront. He wrote honestly about the strain Paul's condition placed on his marriage, the fears that kept him awake at night, and the faith that carried them through the worst of it. The book had 2 purposes: to help other families facing similar diagnoses feel less alone, and to raise money for congenital heart disease research. The Baiers had learned that nearly 1% of U.S. births involve congenital heart defects, yet awareness remains surprisingly low. Bret used his platform to change that. During this period, he received emotional support from someone he hadn't expected, Brit Hume. The veteran Fox News anchor Bret had eventually replaced on Special Report. Hume had grappled with his own family tragedy when his adult son died by suicide, and he understood grief in ways most colleagues did not. His counsel during Paul's early health crises proved invaluable. He told Bret, "It's going to get better. You have to trust in God and the doctors and put it in God's hands." As Paul grew older, the Baiers worked to maintain a sense of normalcy. When their second son, Daniel, was born in 2010, they became mindful of ensuring both boys felt equally loved amid the constant attention surrounding Paul's health. The fear that Daniel might someday feel overshadowed was real, but the brothers forged a close bond. And Paul, despite everything, was determined to live as ordinary a life as he could. Still, The family's hardships were far from over. One of their most frightening moments was yet to come. In 2019, the Baiers took a family vacation to Montana trip meant to give them a much-needed break. They wanted to ski, breathe in the cold mountain air, and briefly forget about hospital visits and heart monitors. With Paul's health relatively stable, they finally allowed themselves to relax. The trip went beautifully. The boys loved the slopes, and Bret and Amy relished the chance to deathcoms as the vacation came to an end. They loaded their luggage and climbed into their vehicle for the drive to the airport. They were leaving with good memories and were already talking about their next family adventure. Nobody could have predicted what would happen next on that Montana road. The vehicle hit an icy patch and Bret lost control. Before anyone fully understood what was happening, their SUV collided with a truck and went careening off the roadway. It flipped and came to rest upside down in a ditch. For a moment, there was only silence and the groan of twisted metal. Then the realization that everyone was still alive. A passing motorist witnessed the crash and immediately stopped to help. The Good Samaritan worked with Bret and Amy to pull the entire family from the overturned vehicle. Emergency responders arrived quickly and rushed them to a nearby hospital. For a family already deeply familiar with medical environments, the irony was painful. They had come to Montana to escape the constant weight of health concerns, only to find themselves back in a hospital again. The injuries, though unsettling, were far less severe than they could have been. Bret suffered a concussion. One family member needed 14 stitches on the chin. Another had a damaged tooth that would require follow-up dental care. A sprained ankle rounded out the list. Miraculously, none of them suffered life-threatening harm. As Bret later said, they were banged up but alive. He publicly thanked the first responders and the stranger who stopped to help. But it was his private reflection, shared on social media, that revealed how deeply the moment struck him. He wrote that nothing in life should be taken for granted, that every day is a blessing, and that family is everything. The crash was yet another reminder of life's fragility, something the Baiers already understood better than most. They had little time to fully process the trauma. Just months later, in 2020, Bret received news that brought a different kind of heartbreak. His father had been diagnosed with cancer. The illness advanced quickly. Within months, Bret was told the end was near. He traveled to be with him, and the family gathered to say goodbye. Bret later expressed gratitude that his father hadn't suffered long, and that everyone who loved him had the chance to be there. The loss cut deeper than he expected. Only 3 years earlier, he had spoken in an interview about how profoundly his father had shaped his work ethic from running a teenage landscaping business to the dedication he brought to journalism. Every lesson about discipline, integrity, and responsibility traced back to the man he was now mourning. When Bret announced his father's passing, colleagues, viewers, and fellow journalists sent messages of sympathy and encouragement, but none of it could fill the void left behind. As Bret grieved and continued navigating Paul's ongoing medical challenges, he had no way of knowing that his professional world was about to be shaken by events far beyond his control. After the 2020 presidential election, political turmoil intensified. Donald Trump refused to concede to Joe Biden, claiming widespread fraud. Many Republicans echoed the allegations, insisting the election had been stolen through tampered voting systems and corrupted vote counts. One company in particular, Dominion Voting Systems, maker of voting equipment used nationwide, became the target of an escalating wave of accusations. Conservative media figures promoted claims that Dominion machines had been programmed to switch votes from Trump to Biden, despite the lack of evidence. The allegations spread quickly, and Fox News, Bret's employer, became central to amplifying them. Several network personalities repeated unverified assertions about Dominion's equipment, suggesting night after night that the company had helped rig the election. The network's largely pro-Trump audience responded eagerly. Dominion, however, had no intention of letting the accusations stand. Unchallenged, Dominion responded to the growing storm by filing a massive $1.6 billion defamation lawsuit against Fox News, accusing the network of knowingly spreading false claims that had destroyed the company's reputation. The lawsuit set off an enormous discovery process, and Bret found himself questioned and scrutinized along with many of his colleagues. Subpoenaed text messages between Fox personalities were examined, internal communications were pulled apart, and what emerged offered a troubling view of how the network had operated in the aftermath of the election. For Bret, the deeper tragedy of the Dominion case went beyond the legal fight. As Fox News shifted further to the right following Trump's loss, he increasingly felt isolated within his own newsroom. He had built his career on measured, fact-based reporting and earned respect across the political spectrum for his fairness. Now he watched the network drift away from those principles in its effort to keep its audience satisfied. In response, he made a choice that reflected his core values. He pitched a special episode that would systematically examine and debunk the false election fraud claims circulating throughout conservative media. The idea was to show that Fox could acknowledge voter concerns while still prioritizing evidence over emotion. An act of journalistic responsibility at a moment when it mattered most. He submitted the proposal and waited for a reply. He never received one. The special was never made. As the Dominion case progressed, Fox fought to keep internal documents confidential. But eventually, some of those communications leaked. The Daily Beast obtained text messages between Bret and Tucker Carlson, one of the network's leading personalities, and their contents would dramatically alter how many people viewed. Bret Baier, the texts revealed discussions about Fox's approach to calling election results. Trump supporters were furious that Biden was leading in several states, and the network faced intense backlash from its core audience. In the messages, Bret acknowledged that viewers were unhappy with Biden's success and felt they needed reassurance. More damaging were his comments about the network's decision desk. He wrote that he had personally urged leadership to slow down their projections and predicted that Fox would slow-walk calling. Nevada for Biden, his prediction proved accurate. Fox News ultimately became the last major network to declare Biden the winner, delaying its call long after other outlets had done so. Before these texts surfaced, Bret had largely been spared speculation about his motives during the 2020 election. Bret's reputation as an even-handed journalist had long shielded him from the harshest criticism directed at Fox News. But the leaked messages delivered a devastating blow to that carefully cultivated image. The text suggested he had allowed political pressures to influence news decisions, an accusation that cuts to the core of journalistic integrity. For someone who had built his career on objectivity, the implication that he had compromised his standards to appease an angry audience was especially painful. In the end, Fox News settled Dominion's lawsuit for $787.5 million, one of the largest defamation settlements in American media history. The network acknowledged that certain claims about Dominion were false, but no public statement could undo the damage done to Fox's credibility or to Bret's personal reputation. Questions about what he had been willing to compromise in service. Two partisan expectations would follow him long after the settlement was finalized. Yet even as his professional life frayed, his personal responsibilities demanded every ounce of strength he had. Despite the turmoil surrounding the Dominion scandal, the Baiers never lost sight of what mattered most. Paul's ongoing battle with his heart condition continued, and the family's dedication to helping others facing similar struggles pushed them forward. Over time, the Baiers became major figures in the pediatric cardiology community. They played a key role in the Children's National Hospital Foundation in Washington, D.C., where Paul had received most of his care. Bret used his public platform to raise awareness and funds, helping generate more than $1 million through charity events and fundraising drives. Amy joined the foundation's board, taking an active role in shaping its mission. In 2023, they made their most significant contribution yet. A $1 million donation to establish the Baier Family Congenital Heart Disease Research program at Children's National Hospital. The initiative focuses on improving treatment options for congenital heart disease, which affects nearly 1% of all U.S. births. For the Baier family, it was a way of turning their own hardship into purpose, hoping that future families might face fewer obstacles than they had. Meanwhile, Paul continued to surpass expectations. Despite his lifelong medical challenges, He refused to let his condition dictate his abilities. He earned a spot on his high school's varsity golf team and spent countless hours practicing his swing. He also played varsity tennis, pushing himself in ways that would have seemed unthinkable given his medical history. Through it all, Bret and Amy worked to ensure both Paul and his younger brother Daniel felt equally supported, mindful not to let Paul's health overshadow Daniel's own experiences growing up. Then, in May 2024, came another reminder of how fragile Paul's situation remained. A routine chest X-ray, one he had undergone dozens of times before, revealed a life-threatening aneurysm near his heart. 16-year-old Paul had shown no symptoms. Had the aneurysm gone unnoticed, it could have ruptured without warning, almost certainly killing him. Bret called the discovery divine intervention. And given the odds of catching an asymptomatic aneurysm during a routine scan, it was difficult to argue with him. Paul underwent his 5th open-heart surgery to repair the aneurysm. The operation was as complex and high-risk as any he had faced, but it was successful. Just 5 days later, he was discharged to recover at home. Throughout their journey, the Baiers remained committed to openness about their experiences. They understood the comfort and guidance their story could offer other families facing congenital heart disease. Bret used his platform to interview medical experts, educate viewers on warning signs, and emphasize the importance of early screening. He highlighted families dealing with CHD, giving them space to share their own stories of hardship and hope. Their message remained steady, even in the darkest moments. There is always reason to believe things can get better. Trust the medical professionals. Lean on faith if you have it. Hold tightly to your family. Take everything one day at a time. Tomorrow isn't promised, but it also isn't predetermined. Today, Bret Baier continues anchoring Special Report each evening, delivering news to millions of Fox viewers. But he is fundamentally different from the ambitious young journalist. Joined the network in 1998. Years of medical crises, personal losses, and professional controversies have reshaped his understanding of what truly matters. Now, approaching adulthood requires ongoing cardiac care for the rest of his life. His doctors cannot predict exactly what the future holds. There will likely be more procedures, possibly more surgeries. The aneurysm scare of 2024 was a stark reminder that danger still lurks in ways that cannot always be anticipated. Yet Paul has survived to 16, thriving despite his condition, and has built a life filled with sports, friends, and normal teenage experiences. For the Baier family, that is far more than they dared hope for during those terrifying first days in the hospital. Bret now speaks often about the importance of gratitude, about being thankful for everything in every moment. Professional setbacks, while painful and sometimes embarrassing, pale in comparison to nearly losing his son multiple times over the years. The leaked texts may have damaged his reputation, but Paul survived. The Dominion scandal tarnished Fox News, but his family survived a car crash in Montana that could have killed them all. Perspective, Bret learned, changes everything about how triumph and tragedy are processed. The Montana accident, which flipped their vehicle upside down, was another brutal reminder of life's fragility. One moment you're driving to an airport thinking about your normal routine. The next you're hanging upside down in a ditch, unsure if everyone is okay. You cannot control when ice appears on a road. You cannot control when a baby is born with heart defects. You cannot control when text messages leak or when your father is diagnosed with cancer. But you can control how you respond. You can choose gratitude over bitterness, purpose over despair. For a man who spent decades reporting on other people's tragedies and triumphs, analyzing political wins and losses, and covering the rise and fall of public figures, Bret has discovered that his greatest story is not delivered from the anchor desk. It is lived every day, at home, with a family that has endured more than most can imagine. It is found in the sound of Paul's heartbeat, strong after 5 open-heart surgeries. It is visible in the bond between two brothers who have learned that medical challenges do not define a childhood. It is present in every grateful breath the family takes, aware of how close they have come to losing everything. Multiple times, the professional controversies will fade. The Dominion scandal will become a footnote in cable news history. The leaked texts will be forgotten as new controversies arise. But Paul's heart will keep beating, and the Baier family will keep waking up each day, choosing gratitude over fear, purpose over paralysis, and believing that even the hardest journeys can lead to hope, resilience, and love.